Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings be upon you. In the name of God, the most gracious and the most merciful. All glory and praise belongs to God, and salutating with salutations to the beloved and all the beloveds of God, who include Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his holy family. Thank you so much for tuning into our 18th Healing is Believing podcast series. Today we are discussing learning to accept test. In today's podcast, we're joined with Imam Saab and myself. I'm your host, QW. Assalamu alaikum, Imam Saab. How are you today?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Very well, thank you. And yourself?
Alhamdulillah. So wonderful. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show and share with us your insight. And as always, as you humbly always come back and inform the audience that all of this is the inner wisdom that we have been blessed and graced with our teacher, the beloved Qutb of our time. And we're so grateful to have such a great master in helping us to understand our spirit, our soul, and to really better ourselves. And so when we have come to the end of Ramadan, as this podcast is being launched the day after Eid, and one of the challenges is, it is a month, Ramadan is a month of purification, cleansing, repairing that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it becomes a challenge when the element of the fasting is kind of takes its course in terms of the 30 days have been completed, and we get back into our cycle and routine and the patterns, and trying to continuously keep our faith in check into an elevated status, and to keep it at a higher conscious level. And there's so much resistance of negativity, environmental factors, the injustices that happen. And to keep that is truly a great test for one in terms of able to adhere to the test of this life. And Imam Saab, how would you express or explain to our audience in terms of how one can continue to perfect themselves so that the test of living in this life can go smooth with ease?
Interesting topic, really. To be honest with you, you have to understand with Ramadan, what you mentioned about Ramadan is, it's a month of immense barakah, and it's one where the Muslim Ummah together unites, towards a common cause, and it's through that sort of action of self-reflection, self-meditation, seeking sort of an inner solace within themselves, because it's this time of the year that the nafs themselves of man, the lower self, is supposed to be kept in check, and there are certain conditions upon a believer that they have to go through to fulfill the requirements of Ramadan itself. For those who are practicing it, especially in the exoteric perspective. But we know that Ramadan is more than just an exoteric ritual. It's more of as you mentioned before, it's a connection, or it's we're trying to form a connection with God, and that's what we're trying to do. And it's important to understand that there's a spiritual element to Ramadan, and that is far greater than any ritual aspect of Ramadan itself. Ramadan brings itself many, many great things, families coming together, neighbors coming together, the community coming together, unlike any other month. And what we should actually look at and reflect on is that we should continue this conduct all the way through. It's not just a month, where it's a month where God has given us His mercy. to show us exactly what we're capable of when we work together as a community. And I think that's really important, because without working as a community, then we can't help establish peaceful kinship, and there's no element of peace within the community if the community itself is fragmented. But Ramadan is a very special month because it brings everyone together. Because no matter whatever your say your religious understanding, or whatever your understanding is of the religion itself, Ramadan plays a factor in your life and helps you in more ways than one, even if you're not aware of it. But as long as you're adhering to the basic requirements of what a believer is all about, i.e. sincerity, i.e. keeping a clean heart, keeping a clean mind, keeping a clean tongue as well. These are all important aspects, that individual components that make up a believer to a disbeliever. Those are the basic requirements, because those are the things that God will judge you on the Day of Judgment, as He mentions in the Holy Scripture Himself. And so what we have to understand is that once Ramadan has passed, how do you then attain or maintain that level of commitment to the practice? And the reality is that it's very, very difficult, because once that month has passed, that barakah of that month has also gone as well, because all those people connecting together in that month, coming together in a uniform prayer, in uniform oneness and consciousness, has all been depleted, because that month is now over. So everyone has then gone back to the bustle and tussle of daily life. And the problem is that you become disconnected from the whole aspect of Ramadan just as quick as it came round, as quick as it's also gone as well. And that's a big shame, really. And I think it's only when you start sort of delving into the inner practices through a teacher, through a guide, that you can become more focused in, not only just the exoteric, but the esoteric values, from the exoteric practice. And I think those are the culminations of what one can then, travel through and not be sort of distracted by certain elements of what you would call as apparent distress, because the distress is not really distress, but it's God changing and presenting opportunities in a different way. What we have to also understand as well is that part of God's testing is that we have to learn from our mistakes. Yeah. So, for example, if we're doing something on a routinely basis and it's not working, even in your professional life, in your dunya life, if you're doing something and it's not working in your business, or your personal life, your home life, then obviously you look to sort of change things, change the variables slightly to see what would fit and what would work. And it's only when we do that and we realize that, yes, then the opportunities that was always there from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then manifests itself. But the conditions have to be right, you see, because the spiritual world is very, very subtle. And any disruption to the balance, can throw an individual off completely off track. And that's the reason why it's very important to have a guide and to have the understanding, especially of the awliya Allah, because without their understanding and without the foundation laid by them under the pupillage of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because all awliya Allah, the connection all goes back to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, in understanding that, and even with regards to the Shia Imams as well, exactly the same thing. So there's a mystical, aspect to Islam that we must embrace. Firstly, we must accept. And then we should also understand that, where Ramadan ends, the real Ramadan starts, you see, because now you're in a month where that barakah of Ramadan is gone, because the community together are no longer fasting together. Yet they're praying, they're reading, and all of these things are happening 5 times a day, or, with some sects praying less as well. But essentially the blueprint is all the same for every single dominion of Islam under that umbrella. So what we have to understand is then how do we maintain ourselves throughout this process, throughout the rest of the year? And I think what it means is that we have to understand Ramadan from a perspective of a building of character. Yeah, that's very important. The character is what makes a human being. Yeah, It's not about what you see on the outside, but it's what comes from the inside to the outer. And Allah is aware. God is aware of your intentions at all times. You see, so depending on those intentions, it's whether those opportunities will then come through or not. You see what I'm saying to you? That's what I've understood anyway from my experience in this, with regards to, the spiritual world and the spiritual connection to Allah is very, very subtle, and it's very sacred, and it has to be treated with respect. It has to be treated with, a sense of conduct. And I think that's what's really important. So those people who then, after Ramadan, go back to swearing, backbiting, talking about other people's issues and problems and personal issues, and, all those elements that sort of, promote bad character, those are the things that can often break you away from that connection. So it's very important that you have to understand that when the test comes, and test comes in all manner of shapes and forms, and it's respective even up to your spiritual station as well. Because if you understand in Jesus, alayhi salam, Prophet Isa, alayhi salam, what happened with himself was that, he is a member of, the divine group of prophets. And he himself, as he was trying to spread the notion of, going back to the Torah, because that's what Jesus was doing again. He was trying to bring everyone back to the true teachings of the Torah. Mm-hmm. He wasn't promoting Christianity. He was bringing everyone back to the core message, which people had forgotten or had left to the scholars to decide, you see. So, and at that time, obviously, the scholars were very corrupt, and there was a large injustice against the majority of the Sadducees of that time. So when we're looking at, the element of Jesus in his life, in his lifetime, what had happened was that even he himself, as is mentioned in the Bible, is that he was approached by Satan. And he was approached by Satan and was offered the power of 7 kingdoms. If he stopped preaching the word of God and stopped, doing what he was doing, that this would be offered to him. And you think about the many groups around the world who are trying to dominate, the spiritual powers, as it were, of what we understand now as the earth realms, the earthly levels of consciousness. They're trying to sort of dominate those realms. And they, if they were given that position, they would jump at that chance. See what I'm saying to you? Because the power that you can have from all of these different, from that level of power is immense, But what we understand is that Jesus, obviously himself, being the divine legend and legendary personality that he was, even he himself, turned that offer down from Satan, because he was not interested in, achieving global power or, achieving, because he knew that he was already with God anyway.
Right.
That if he was already with God, then he already has that power. He has access to that power because God is the ultimate power. God created everything, even evil. It's all part of God's creation. So that's why when we're talking about testing, and learning to accept testing is very, very important, because as you go through your day-to-day life, there's all manner of testings that come, right? So you have a person coming, you have this situation or that situation, but you see, the thing is, you have to change your mindset. And you have to change your mindset in thinking that every test, quotation mark, test that comes forward to you is actually an opportunity. Yeah?
Right.
And when you can understand that every test is actually an opportunity, and your intention is always to be, one step closer to God, through righteousness, then it'll be a lot easier for you. The whole testing, the whole, it becomes second nature. So because your intentions are clean, mm-hmm. and you're following the path of righteousness.
Well, it's like when we say that prophet, Jesus, divine, gifted with divine favors, and when we look at the challenges one has to go to keep their faith at a level where they're able to perform righteous actions, deeds, and Ramadan is that step 1 of purification. But when we look on a healing perspective, we are truly blessed to have the divine cleanse from the divine. Truly, action speaks louder than words. We have this gift where this struggle of keeping your faith is, it goes up and down, but you're given like a reset, a restart, correct? We are given this restart through the cleanse where your negativity, ancestral, within yourself, your environmental, is for the first time ever being offered to help one with the struggles of life, with the struggles of keeping their faith, and restoring peace back within oneself, so that when there is a connection to God on the prayer mat or when sitting and reflecting, there is no negativity affecting the being or to have any reason to hold them back from being able to feel that supreme connection. And truly, it's like the soul awakens from this divine cleanse. And then it's like this beautiful gift that has a service that we have that's offered for people to understand, the holistic relationship, that deep connection that one is yearning to be, with God and get that sense of feeling, an understanding of how what truly, true spirituality is about when you're connected with God. But even to maintain that level afterwards is up to the individual, because we all have free will, right? And choices that when we wake up in the morning, how we want to live our life. And we know that in this world, nothing is forever, right? Everything perishes, and to be truly,
I think with what you're saying is spot on, but you've also mentioned as well about Ramadan being a month of purification. Now, I would have to disagree with that, because I would say that Ramadan is not a month of purification as a holistic purification. I think, in my personal opinion, that Ramadan is a month of physical purification. Yeah. Now, when you look into like sort of the scientific, industry, the medical industry, in terms of athletes and how they prepare themselves, they go through what is called intermittent fasting,
right?
Yeah, which they put their body through almost like a mini Ramadan, yeah. Right. And this is people who obviously are not following a religion or anything particularly anyway. Right. We're not kind of labeling them whether they are or not. But what we're saying is that they are going through this process. So it's almost like a mini Ramadan. And they're doing that because the medical industry has associated intermittent fasting as a massive benefit. And many, Muslims around the world, when they're giving these talks on Ramadan and the importance of Ramadan, you'll always see kind of elements of these articles or scientific studies about intermittent fasting always coming up. So what we understand is that from an exoteric perspective, Ramadan is a very important month because it provides us a means to start the gears, to get into that momentum of that physical purification. Yes, I believe that. Right. But it does not mean that. You see, the thing when I'm saying this is that, look, just because you pray doesn't make you a better person.
Right.
Yeah. Just you sit down and you read the Quran for 30 minutes a day doesn't make you a better person. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I've learned anyway, through the encounters of people that I've met along my journey itself. And I've met many blessed people, believe me, far beyond what I can recount, And these are blessed individuals, who themselves have this automatic connection, but they may be unaware of it, or they may not have fully realized, but they know and they are aware. Mm-hmm. So what I begin to understand is that with what the awliya Allah talk about, the saints of God, in the Islamic perspective, what they discuss about the nafs, the lower self of man, that spiritual entity within a human being that you have to overcome, and that is your biggest test. That is the inner jihad, yeah?
Right.
That in itself is the biggest test. Forget about all of the distractions around you and all of these things, because you can go through that with conditioning and you can overcome that, yeah? You can overcome that, because nothing will empower you more than being able to reason, yeah? You know, being able to reason effectively will not stray you away from the truth. It may cause some conflictions or confusions in your understanding, but again, you know, as long as you have a teacher sort of guiding you along and telling you and informing you and giving you that knowledge, then you'll be okay. But if you don't, then, you know, it becomes a very, very difficult path to sort of walk on. So what we're talking about really is that it's all about Ramadan, I believe, has always been about, you know, the physical purification, but the physical purification should lead to something. There's, you know, you're addressing a problem within yourself. Yeah. So you're starting off with the physical purification process. At the end of Ramadan, you should be at a point where you are now an enlightened human being. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
You be an enlightened human being, but nobody's enlightened to that level because you're not able to sustain that, you know, that level of mercy from God throughout the rest of the year.
Right.
You see?
Yes.
So what we have to understand is that there is this element within ourselves that where we have attachments to energy that is beyond our understanding. And that's where we start talking about ancestral energy. We start talking about the disruptive energy patterns around us that is affecting us on a spiritual level. And if we can learn and understand that and then go through, you know, the process of the divine cleanse, and then come out on the other side and say, I do feel different, I feel lighter, I feel better, I feel stronger, then from that perspective and from that point then, you can truly start to, you know, go through that process of, you know, a more deeper inner purification process. But before all of that even happens, you know, the element of the characteristics of a person has to be there. It has to be met. You know, the divine cleanse is not for everybody. And I'll put that out there right now. Because why? Because you need to have a certain level of understanding before you come forward to have that. Because it's such a blessing from God that you have to understand what it is. And truly the ones who do value it or understand it are those who are suffering the most. And those are the ones that, you know, if they speak to you, you would think that they were crazy.
Right.
Yeah. Because of the level of negativity that is affecting their spirit. You know, they have gone below the past, you know, the level of stabilization of a spirit, you know, is at zero. Yeah. Right. If you imagine like a set of scales, you know, when you put it on tear, which is zero, right? You know, you can put anything on it, you can recalibrate it and it's on zero. In that instance, if the balance of that scale is in the negative, that's exactly what's happening to that condition of that spirit, of that human being. So then what this effectively, the service does is it comes in as an intercessor, you know, for that individual, for that family, for that household, and lifts that negative energy because you don't have the power to be able to lift it yourself. And secondly, you can't use the forces of the, you know, earthly dimensions, you know, the earthly realms. Those levels of consciousness are not strong enough to lift this type of negative energy. They don't have the permission to do that. So this is where we understand then that the higher energy and the higher understanding and the higher levels of consciousness exists with the saints, exists with the friends of God, exists with those who are closest to Him because they are able to give you this wisdom from God directly. You see, all through the channel of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you know, in which he is allowing all these sort of wisdoms to come through, to give the explanation, give the understanding. I think the problem with society today, really, when I look at the Islamic society, is that so much little is known about the true Islam, the true essence of Islam, that every single year we are regurgitating the same information, this baby knowledge of information of why Ramadan is so important. We should already establish that Ramadan is important. Yeah, Rajab is important, Muharram is important. All of these months are important. Right. But now what we need to do is look at the deeper spiritual context of these months, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think once we can establish that and understand that Ramadan itself provides a platform in which you can then start, you know, starting to change your character, working on your character, because you don't have any other distractions. It's a month in which, fornication is prohibited during the day, a month in which food and drink is prohibited during the day as well.
Right.
So there's not really much else that you can do apart from work and pray, and reflect. So this is what I'm saying to you. So, if we're talking about the wisdom, the circles of wisdom, and sitting in company of pious people, and understanding and drawing on from that wisdom, that we should be looking at emulating the prophets in the Holy Book, and understanding the lessons to be learned in the Holy Book, because it's very important. Because these are the people who are immortalized by God, isn't it? It's by His favor and His decree that He's put, people such as Noah in the Quran, alayhi salam, and people like Yusuf, alayhi salam. When we talk about forgiveness, we talk about it being Ramadan, the month of forgiveness as well. Many people, they hold on to grudges, even through Ramadan.
Right.
They hold on to grudges, and it's such a shame, because they say that they're Muslim and they say that they follow the Quran in all its entirety, and they haven't understood the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, who at 8 years old, or something similar to that age. I mean, obviously the age is always going to be sort of disputed, but from a young age, to be left for dead by his brothers, his own brothers, because of the jealousy of the love of the father.
Right.
And then, several decades later, to go through that journey of developing into a man, and then going through further testing, even as a beloved of God, and then being at a state where he's able to forgive his brothers for what had happened to him from childhood. Now, you've got to understand, when we talk about trauma to childs today, like children going through trauma today, they're very sensitive. Children are very, very sensitive today. And when they go through elements of trauma, it does affect them later on in life. Now, when you see with Yusuf alayhi salam, that trauma, it doesn't seem like it had that much of an effect on him at all. And you're talking about being completely detached from your family, being put in a well, left for dead, That's, if that in itself is not a wake-up call to a lot of these people who are sitting there praying, yet still having grudges against everybody else, then that's something definitely to consider.
Right.
Because what we said is that Ramadan is all about, as you mentioned, about purification. A purification of your character is the most important thing. Because once the character is reformed and the character is perfected or going through the path of perfection, only then do you qualify, I would say, to step on the esoteric path. Before then, no. Because otherwise what will happen is you will come onto the esoteric path and all you will want is power. Yeah? And that's what we see a lot of, from what we understand with our interactions with the community, is that there are many people who are practicing spirituality within Islam, but are using it for the wrong purpose and are effectively carrying out spiritual malpractice on a wide scale. And it's affecting everybody, because people who don't have any knowledge or any understanding are going to these people, and you're being told one thing and another thing, and, everything is just very difficult at the moment. So, this is what I'm saying. I mean, if you start with yourself and end with yourself, that's the most important thing. Forget about everybody else for the moment. So work on yourself, and pull yourself to a state of higher consciousness, to a state of at least a level of level-headed understanding, because anger doesn't get anyone anywhere. It doesn't, it's really important that we understand that the building of character throughout Ramadan is something that then you can sustain. You can sustain that, You can sustain that, because the momentum then is to keep going. Because, the way that you are as a character, it doesn't change, does it? Whether you're at home, or whether you're at work, or whether you're in the masjid, or whether you're outside, or you're in your community, it doesn't change. Yeah, it shouldn't change. You shouldn't be one way with one people and another way with another people, And that's why even with our kutub as well, they are always the same, irrespective of how people take them. They always are going to be how they are, you see. And that in itself is a test for the people, because it's how you then, decipher what is. But this all then comes back to what is coming through them. And that's what people have to understand, is that the divine cleanse that is coming through, it can have a tremendous impact on your life. But you have to accept it with a, with a single step of sincerity. and God Himself will open up many doors and many opportunities. But it's down to the seeker individually on that sort of level, really.
Right. Well, really great insight, Imam Saab, and for our audience to understand the essence of the divine cleanse, the abilities of getting to know oneself within themselves, and then to sincerely to be seeking wholeheartedly to be closer to Allah, and revival of true Islamic teachings is truly holds so much wealth of information is one thing, and knowledge, and then to have a blessed teacher who can truly gifted with favors and helping one to self-realization, as we say, God realization, and save a soul, save humanity. And that's all we're here to do, is to empower so that there's true peace, true love, and pure light, radiating across the globe, and it's so as always, if there's any questions, or feel free to email at info@thedivineclinicfoundation.org. If you would like some more insight on our previous podcast, feel free to visit www.thedivineclinicfoundation.org. Thank you, Imam Saab, for your wisdom, and thank you, our audience, for tuning into today's podcast. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.